Go in that beer joint, he's going to talk. And that's kind of the way I am, you know, and he sits in there every day, waiting for somebody to, and you got to assume if they're at the sale, they're here to support the gardeners. And then you've got to remember we've got great product. We have great products. We've got something that Walmart doesn't have. And that is a bunch of enthusiasts right here that can answer the questions.
Does everyone have a handout? There are a couple people don't. Taylor will go get those. And this is not meant to be a treatise on how to sell ice to Eskimos. What it is, there's some general tips. You know, selling something is not rocket science, and we're going to use this as a way to sort of stimulate conversation. Mike and I are going to talk a lot. If you have questions that are pertinent to what we're talking about, feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you. Selling is really just a marriage of goods and services to purchasers, which is enabled and encouraged by a third party. And in our case, the products are plants and the enablers are you. So your act in selling is an enabling act. It's putting that customer together with a product that we have to sell. So knowing that, I think that gives us a really good start because everyone wants to be an enabler. It's kind of a facilitative role. So you're facilitating. And that always sounds really, doesn't it feel good to facilitate?
I guess.
One of those $50 management words that, you know, we're going to facilitate your interaction with the
This is the first retailing course I've ever had.
Seriously?
So the first thing is knowing the product. And certainly there's no substitution for knowing the general growing conditions and the ornamental and environmental characteristics of the plants that you sell. So things like sun exposure, things like soil requirements, what's the pH, what's the moisture that the plant wants or will tolerate. Does the plant require excellent drainage? Does the plant require sitting in a bog? Those are the big ones. Secondarily, things like growth habit. How big is it going to get in what amount of time? How high, how wide, what shape is it? Then you have all the ornamental characteristics like
foliage, deciduousness or not, you know, fall color, bark. I'm in trees and shrubs, so I'm thinking trees and shrubs, characteristics. But bloom, when does it bloom? Does it repeat its bloom? And what does it look good with? So that once you sell them this plant, well, have you thought about underplanting it with something else and then take that tree and shrub sale over to perennials so that y'all can sell them something to underplant their newly purchased tree and shrub. Just build on these sales.
And Mike is the king of the tie-in. He really is.
One other thing is pollination, both with the ornamentals to get berries, whether you need two or not, or another one.
Yeah, certainly the fruiting characteristics and how that fruit happens.
What you got to have.
So Mike is the king of the combination sale or the companion plant, and it's like when you buy a refrigerator. When you get to the checkout, what's the thing they try to do? Well, do you want a service contract? You know, and who takes the service contracts? No one takes the service. But people will take the companion plants, especially if it's something that has a complementary bloom, or you know, when this fades, that's going to come into flower. So those kinds of things, and you know, you don't need to know the botanical names. Certain customers like it if you know the botanical names, but
that's what we bring you in. Fred knows this.
Sometimes. But there's an important part of the botanical name that you do need to know, and that's the cultivar. Because if we're selling tomatoes, all those tomatoes are really known by their cultivar names. If we're selling camellias, those camellias are known by their cultivar names. We're selling Japanese maples. Most of those Japanese maples are known by their cultivar names. Each one of those different cultivars has a different characteristic that makes it unique and special and wonderful. So those are the nuts and bolts about knowing the plants. And a lot of you know more about your plant group, the plants that you sell in your plant group, than Mike and I know combined. So that's a real leg up, and it's a marketing thing that we use to say, we've got these experts that are sitting in the room and that are at the plant sale, they're growing the plants, they know. So that brings us to those intangible things that, like Mike alluded to, Walmart doesn't have.
Don't be afraid to say that you don't know. That indicates that you're going to give them better information by taking them to somebody who does it. Okay? And I do that all the time. Those are folks that work in trees and shrubs. You don't see me sell many French hydrangeas because I don't really grow them, and so how can I really sell them? But there are people in our group that can sell the stew out of them. That's the people I physically take this customer to. People want to buy these plants. Put them together with the right person. If you're not the right person, find that person for you. I think. Yeah, that's what I think.
We're gonna delve deeper into that in a little bit, but most of you know that you're our experts, and we rely on you to be the experts. So the plants that make it to the plant sale have already been selected by experts, and we like to talk about that. They're grown by experts, whether it's the herb group tending the herbs all season long, or the perennial group doing that. You know, those experts are eyeballing the plants. The native plant group is another group that grows a lot of the things we sell. Those experts are tending the plants, in many cases, from inception to sale. So those experts are always keeping an eye on things. The other thing is that we're getting plants from nurseries that we've selected that are also experts. So those plants have been really selected a couple of times to be at the sale. The other thing, and this is something that we don't always, I think, pay close attention to, what the plant looks like when it's on sale. You know, there are a lot of nurseries that they don't have anything on sale in front of the customer unless it's got a flower on it, unless it's got a bud on it. Boy, if they're going to cut it back, they're going to hide it and not really have it out for sale. We used to do business when I owned a retail business with a nursery who said, you don't have to order anything. We're going to deliver to you every Friday the things that are in bud and bloom for your weekend sale. You don't have to worry about what they are. When they come off the truck, they're going to look great, and you're going to sell them in 2 or 3 days. We don't have that luxury because we're selling things just for that 4-day span of time that may look wonderful. They may be at their peak. Their peak might have just happened a week and a half ago, and the flowers are sort of dribbly and fadey, or their peak now might not come until the fall, or much, much later in the summer. That's a much harder sale, so you have to know how that plant is going to change. But one of the things that I know Mike does, and David does, and I do in the tree and shrub area is grooming. Grooming. If your plant containers have weeds in them, boy, that is just a turn off, turn off, turn off. You might as well just have eaten a garlic sandwich with Limburger cheese. There could be no bigger turn off. If the plant has dead leaves or dead branches or flowers that are dribbly off of it, that's a turn off. So you really do need to concentrate on grooming the plants. They need to look good. We know they're good. We know the weeds in the soil ball in the container. We can pick those out when we go home and plant them. It may not matter to us, but it might matter to the customer, and pretty often it does matter. If the containers are all muddy and look dirty or broken and smashed, boy, that's a turn off. So grooming is really more important, I think, than we give it credit for.
But, that being said, we all know there are those plants that we have to sell. So get them out of the public's eye until you've sold everything else. And then bring those out for the Sunday afternoon. They'll pretty much buy anything on Sunday afternoon. If it's a bargain, they're going to take it home. So don't let those plants distract from the first few days of the sale. Just put them under the table, and then after all their compatriots have sold it, maybe bring them out again. Okay?
You know, there's one little secret weapon that a lot of you have when it comes to sales that a lot of other people who are not gardeners don't have. And that's a personal story. The most influential thing in marketing is being able to tell a personal story about something. We are creatures of storytelling. It's why we like movies, it's why we like books, it's why we like art. It's probably the purpose of art. And some people would argue religion, theater, all of those things are about stories. If you can tell a story, a personal story about the plant and relate it to you and relate it to that customer, that's something that will really stick with people. If you grew it, doesn't matter if you grow it at home, if you grew it and nurtured it in the growing area, if you propagated it, if you have it at your house, if you put it on your favorite pizza recipe last month, okay? All of those personal stories are part of those intangible things that really makes the plant come alive and gives that person something to latch onto. We really pay attention to personal stories. So how you grew it, how you tended it at home, how you have admired it at someone else's house. You don't need to grow it. You've been looking at it since you sowed the seed, and you were just amazed by how it came up and the vigor that it has, and you can't wait to get it home yourself. All right? I'm not suggesting you lie. I'm not suggesting you lie. But you all know a lot of people who are in your group or other gardeners, so you may not have grown it, but you may know someone else who has a personal story who can tell that story in a way that you can't. Because people can see lack of sincerity. So I'm not suggesting that you lie, I really am. Maybe you've seen it at other gardens. Maybe you saw it on a garden tour at Mike's house. Not all of us have a big garden. Not all of us are.
Yeah, we do. We've got this one. And you can tell them about seeing it here and what it looks like at the Botanical Gardens.
Right.
You know, and our experience at the Botanical Gardens growing these.
And that, too, is a good way to cross-sell, to sell two things. Oh, I saw that, you know, at the Botanical Gardens, they have some of those, and they're planted with, you know, they have that beautiful weeping rosemary that has the thyme that's interwoven through it, and it really looks, they really look beautiful together, and they both go on pizza.
Help paint them a picture of these plants in their garden. And just like Fred says that they want to hear from us a personal story, they also want to tell you their personal story. So to make time to listen to their story, and sometimes that's so hard to do. You know, sometimes I think people come just to talk to us. You know, and in Trees and Shrubs, we have a secret weapon, and it's named Ken Hall. And Ken is the best person. He's the best listener. And if you really need to get away from somebody, get Did you know this?
No.
Did you know this?
No, what I do is I keep them busy while Mike is talking to somebody else, tell them a little bit about the grafting for a Japanese maple, and then I stuck them on Mike.
And then I put them to Dave. We do pass people around.
You know, when we were putting this little talk together, Mike brought something to the fore which I often forget. And in fact, one of the things that we're selling is not the plants, it's the gardens. Right? And just talk a little bit about how you do that.
Well, often the first thing I'll say to somebody is not, can I help you? It's thank you for supporting the garden. And I kind of remind them that's why they're here. And then maybe they'll say, oh, I don't need anything. And I'll say, what does need have to do with this? Well, that's true. And it's all about getting their money to support the garden. And then sometimes I'll even try to work in, are you a member of the Botanical Gardens? Well, it would be great if you were, you know. You could come to the preview sale if you were, you know. And talk up the benefits of being part of this institution and how important their money and their support is to this institution. If they tell me they can get the same plant at Walmart for $1 cheaper, then I just keep smiling and say, it's not really about the price, it's about the support you're giving to the garden. And I'm sincere when I say that. And I think that works. I'm not putting a guilt trip on them. I'm just trying to remind them a little bit. Yeah. About why they're here.
All right.
You know.
That's not lying.
You know who buys the most plants at our sale?
Volunteer.
We do. That's exactly right.
But Mike makes a great point. A lot of times we're so caught up in the plants that, you know, we forget there's a bigger picture. And if you can talk a little bit about what the money goes to, the mission-related programs that we do. If you don't know anything about the mission-related programs, you need to go to the website and pull up our latest education impact statement. and find out what it is that you're working toward. Karen?
That is my question. When you say we make budget, is it the budget for just the education? Is that the budget we're meeting? What is the,
It's the
or is
budget
it
for the-
also going
It's
for
the budget for the
friends?
plant sale.
Huh?
It's the budget for the, we budget what
What
we
we're
want
gonna
the
bring
plant
in.
sale to earn.
But is it, but it is all for education, or it does it spread across?
Everything we do is mission-based. So, I mean, that's a very deep and long conversation.
Okay, that's
You know,
fine.
but yes, it goes to offset the cost of all our mission-based programs.
Okay.
All right?
What percentage do we plan to make on these things? Is there a set percentage for everything that we sell? Because people might ask, how much are you actually going to give to the garbage?
Well, I don't know that that's a question you want to get into.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to get into all the proceeds that the plant sale earns go to offset the cost of our mission-based programs. And, you know, that's not even a question I would get in the weeds with, because it really doesn't matter. And it's impossible to answer, because we don't know until a month after the plant sale is over and all the bills are in and we see how we did compared to how we thought we would do. But I can tell you that we make about 50% net revenue on the plant sale, after all the expenses are totaled and everything else. And that's starting, as some of you are involved in the pricing, that's starting at that 2.5 or a little bit higher markup, because we have a lot of intangibles that go into making the sale. And that does not include any staff time or labor, if you will, all right? So that's, yes?
I had 2 questions. The first one was kind of going back to you said about the nurseries.
Yeah.
I usually work at cashier, and I get questions about, like, are the gardens paying those nurseries? Because a lot of the tags look identical, you know,
Sure.
little cultivation stuff.
Sure.
And then the second question was about, at the registers, we often have like a chosen, you know, give $1 to, you know, like the,
Sometimes we do that.
is there one this year? And can you talk about it? And can you, like, encourage people to talk about it at the booths too? Because usually it comes up.
I'm not aware that we're doing donate $1 this year.
Okay.
I'm not aware that we're doing that. From time to time we have.
And what about paying the commercial growers?
We support our vendors, yes.
Okay, so what's a good way to answer that question? So they don't-
Absolutely. We deal with a number of vendors that are in the state and in the region, and those people are business people. And yes, absolutely, we support them because they grow the plants that are wonderful, so we can supply them to you.
And many times the tags in the plant are actually done there by the vendor. So
Yeah.
that's why they look like they're that way.
Yeah. But absolutely, we support our vendors.
Every discussion about money, I try to bring back and remind folks that it's a free admission garden, and that for everybody that walks in the garden, it costs about $12 for their visit.
There's a big sign outside that explains that.
And that this sale is one of the major ways that we keep the gates open.
All right, so I want to move on, and we've been talking about the product, the plants. We've talked about the plants. We've talked about the intangibles, and we've talked about the gardens as a product that you're soft selling. So know the product was number one. Number two is know thyself, which is a great thing. And there's an old, really almost retail 101, and it's an acronym that applies broadly, GIGO. You know, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. As you're preparing for the plant sale and you're prepared to talk to 1,000 people in 4 days, don't load up on whatever it is that just gets you mad. You know, for my mother, it would be listening to Glenn Beck. For me, it's reading the New York Times op-ed pages. You know, avoid all those triggers that set you off. Whatever it is, everybody's different, right? Everybody's different. Don't watch the rerun of the last game Auburn or Alabama lost. Don't do that.
And don't talk football. Don't talk football.
Because you'll offend 50% of the people no matter what you're talking about. I once wore a Philadelphia Eagles sweatshirt to a plant sale. And actually someone came up to me and goes, "What's that about?" We have two very good football teams in this state. What's that about? Whoa, that's a button. So, because what you put in comes out. And you're going to be so steamed about whatever it is that gets your goat, people are going to go, "What's eating him? What's eating her? Boy, you got up on the wrong side of bed." Those kinds of things. So,
Take your medicine.
harmony. Medication. Whatever works. And of course, meeting and greeting. One of the things Mike said, one of the first things he says, "Thank you for coming to the plant sale. We're thrilled that you're here." You know, you greet people with a smile. A smile is the most disarming thing in the world. Even if you don't talk to the person, smiling at the person, smiling at the customers, boy, it really breaks that barrier. Make eye contact, you know, "Hey, thanks for coming today." I know it gets hard after 4 days of doing that, and you're like, "Hey, thank you, thank you."
Try not to let them say no. So don't ask a question that can be answered with a yes or a no. "Can I help you today?" can be answered with a yes or a no. And that's what I want to say, because that's what I'm there to do. So, did you bring a list? Tell me what's on your list. "Oh, it's so good to see you brought a plan of your garden. Can I look at it?" "Look what's in your basket. You like plants that have attractive foliage. Can I show you some of these?" "Oh, looking in your basket, I see stuff that says to me you love fragrance. Let me show you what we've got in fragrance." Look for clues, okay? It's all about clues. Get them to talk, and some people are so shy they won't even make eye contact. But just keep working. Just keep on.
Yeah. See somebody with an empty box. "Well, you're not doing too good today. Let me help you fill that up." You know? That's a good way to do it. There are a million different ways to break that ice.
One of the really good ones, instead of saying, "May I help you," is, "What can I help you with? What can I show you today?" And another thing in Retail 101, don't forget, don't sell the steak, sell the sizzle.
Right, and we'll talk exactly about that in a minute. One of the things that I know it's hard, but a phrase that's used in retail is "be busy but available." Nothing is a bigger turnoff than someone approaching the booth and all the volunteers are. It's unapproachable. And I know sometimes you have to huddle because of strategy. You're trying to figure out what to mark down. You got to bring the 80 plants out that are in the back or whatever. And there was all that work that has to happen. But if all your backs are turned to the customers and you're not smiling and meeting and greeting, they're going to keep walking.
And while we're on that subject, those tables are barriers. This isn't Loveman's perfume counter. Okay, get out. I think, this is me. This isn't Fred, didn't say this. I say get out from behind the tables. Get out from behind the tables and circulate. And physically get somebody and take them to see this plant. Sometimes it's all, that they just need a little escort, all right? Those tables are nice, but really the person behind the tables, they should be stocking and keeping stuff groomed and pushed forward. And they're available, but if you are circulating around the table, you have opportunities to get beyond the barriers, okay?
Plus, if you're looking at your plant displays only from the back, you're not seeing what the customer is seeing. You may have the ugliest plant right out there. That should be the one that's under the table and so on.
She's been tipped over, but somehow or other she stayed at the front and she's not making a very good impression.
You're talking about the plant. That part's not in there.
They're all she to me. I can't help it.
The notes say a couple times, be and appear to be available, eager, happy to see people. Some people, my normal face is my grandmother. My grandmother, Hazel Lightbird. That's my normal face. So I really have to work on it to try to get some teeth showing and try to get a smile on my face. I'm eager to help. I don't always look like I'm eager to help. Especially if Jeannie Sherlock has just pulled me behind the thing and said, now, we pay too much for these and I told you not to buy them.
That's the question, and it may fit in somewhere else.
It may or it may not, but we'll work on it.
A lot of times people will come to the booth and they will say, do you have X, Y, or Z? Or do you know where X, Y, or Z
Oh,
is?
yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of times we don't know in our booth what the other booths are selling.
Sure.
We'll sort of zoom around and take
Sure.
a look. But I've always thought that it would be really helpful if I know the Perennial Group puts together a master list of what we're selling. I've always thought that it would be really helpful if each group had that list somewhere and could look it up and say, why, yes, that's over here.
It's on the website.
Well, I don't have access to the website while I'm selling.
When we're selling, we don't have one.
Sure we do.
You know, I can
That's
understand.
smartphone?
I can understand. Get there a few minutes early, and this is what I do. I get there 30 minutes earlier, and I walk the whole place.
I do too, but sometimes it's hard to know.
I mean, sometimes, you know, if it's a shrub, you can just say, go to the tree and shrub.
And
and
that's
ask them. I mean,
often,
that's all.
that's
you know.
often what I do,
Yeah.
but, you know, in terms of customer service, it's nicer to be able, if somebody says, do you have so-and-so and so-and-so, say, yes, we do, and it's over here. It's just a suggestion.
If you can just get them in the right category, like perennials, then what I do a lot of times, if I have the time, is I will take Susan physically to perennials and say, Susan, I want you to meet Kathy.
Right.
Kathy will take care of it.
You are good at that.
And really, it's what we all want when we're in a store and we say, you know, I'm looking for those. It's not a bouillon cube. It's kind of like a goopy thing. And it comes in a jar, and it's better than I don't know what it's called. And the person says, I'll 6. And you're like, okay. But if they say, I'm going to show you exactly where it is, come with me. And I know we don't always have time to do that. And I know that the next booth may be all the way over there. But if you could say, you need to go to the tree and shrub booth, which is right over there, look at the sign, and talk to Mike Russian. And this is what Mike was. They're the expert. You know, and if Mike doesn't know, he's going to find someone who is the expert. All the experts are under the roof. We don't always know exactly who's the expert of what. But we can help find the expert, Gail.
Fred, one of the things that we attempt to do, and I'm wondering if we could do it more broadly, is when we have like 5 or 6 people that we ask to help us at the sale that we call experts, and beyond ourselves, that we have come.
Yeah.
And we have
Like Jan Midgley.
Right, we make a little special tag that says expert on it. So if somebody's trying to find somebody, they can find them. So I don't know if everybody does something like that, but it helps the person who can't leave their booth say, if you walk over there and look for so-and-so.
Bullseye.
Right.
But you're not wrong. What we've tried to do for years is get the booths to put a list of the plants that they think are going to be available. Get that to us and we can post it on our website.
So I can just print it out myself.
We don't have the resources to edit that. We also don't have, you all don't have the time and the patience and the resources to verify that what you thought you were going to have actually came off the truck when it came shipped from the nursery and didn't get canceled last week because there was a late frost. So it's not a perfect system.
It's being modified within 12 hours of the time the sale starts.
But not every booth does that. Not every booth does that.
It's just what it is. Courtney had a question here before.
Yeah.
And along with that, I think it'd be helpful if we had some kind of map, like roses are here, lemons here, because somebody.
Yeah, there's a map at the member. Yeah.
We've got big banners.
Yeah.
And I know the signs that, you know.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
a copy. Oh, where's the map?
Yeah, you're right.
We look stupid. I don't know where camellias are, you know.
Yeah, there's generally a map.
Where?
And where?
We need one in each of the booths.
Yeah, I agree with
Say
that.
where it is. And with the columns, you can't always see those signs.
I agree. It would be at the information booth, which is right where you come in.
We need one in each of our booths so we can direct.
Just laminate
What's the
one.
best way to get that to you?
Print it out.
Laminate it, put one in each right on there.
Can we
Don't
pick
we
one
have
up
big
when we
hanging
come to the
signs
front door?
anyway?
Taylor's shaking his head yes, and we do have big hanging signs, so let's move on. But those are good comments, and Taylor's gonna, we can get you a laminated pen. Don't lose it. Here's a really good tip for selling, and you alluded to it earlier. Listen to what people want and steer them in the right direction. And
help them think about where they're putting the plants. Okay? And then, when they're ready to buy that one heuchera, say now, do you want 3 or 5 or 7? Yeah, and then they'll say, I just wanted 1. Oh, no, wait, you know, let's talk about this a little bit, you know, and help them. And then sell them a companion plant to the heuchera. Or if they're, you know, really into fancy foliage, say, you need to go see Mike in Trees and Shrubs and let him show you this really cool variegated hydrangea, you know, that has wonderful foliage, and just keep pushing them through the system, okay? And I'm sincere about this. I'm not a huckster. I'm really trying to get these people happy, all right?
And if you don't have that, sometimes they'll come in and they want a specific fern that's tropical. And you'll say, well, maybe over tropical, show them the tropical is. I always make a point to go to tropicals and find out what kind of ferns they have over there to begin with. And if you don't have that specific one, say, well, no, this one is a very similar fern to that.
There you go.
It's the same growth habit and that kind of thing. And you might be happy with this one. What's your garden plan?
That is exactly what I do. And I'll say, you keep shopping. I'm going to go check with tropicals and see. And then I have to make myself take a good long look. Because I'll go back and then I'll say, okay, who was that? All y'all look alike after 3 days.
Well, part of listening is asking the right question. And there are times when you do want to ask a yes or no. Well, it's called a closed question. You only has 1 of 2 answers. It's going to be yes or no. And you might need to do that because if you're talking about whether they're looking for plants for sun or shade, you know, you want to do that. But open questions get you more information. That's when you really have to listen. You know, like Mike says, do you really like plants? It seems like you like plants that have really colorful foliage. Do you like plants with colorful foliage? You know, what kind of colors do you like? And that way you can get more information for further sales. Once a person has 1 plant in a box, you know, they're going to fill up the box. You know, nobody's going to walk. Most people are not going to walk out with 1.
Speaking of boxes, if somebody is walking around with a totally full box in, offer to take that box from them, get their name, write their name on it, and put it in the holding bin and bring them a fresh box. All right. It's hard to do with buggies. Sometimes there are no more buggies. Sometimes what you need to do is get boxes, fill them up, empty that person's buggy and say, now these plants are in the holding area and Sophie is written on the side. When you're ready to check out, just ask that person to get you Sophie's boxes and you're ready to go. And I've seen people fill up 2 or 3 buggies. All right?
And really, the genius of that is people forget they have all that stuff. Because all of a sudden they go, oh, I had a lot of stuff, and now I don't have anything.
I never stuff.
They've got an empty basket.
Where is the holding bin? I didn't know we had one because sometimes we'll take a box and just put them in our booth. But I'd like to unload a buggy. I didn't realize is there a spot we've had? Where is it?
Usually up there by the cashier.
That little area, that kind of, okay.
Has lots of boxes.
Yeah,
Has people's
okay,
names
all
on
right.
it.
Well, okay. They're bored because people will pilfer.
Well, certainly,
Really.
sometimes happens, pretty rarely. Certainly know your limits. Again, no one's asking you to lie or tell something you don't know. Find the expert. There's no harm in saying, you know what? I don't know a thing about that plant, but I can find you someone who does.
That gets you a lot of credibility.
Sure. Also assume that you're going to make every shopper a buyer. Everyone who comes in, everyone who looks at your booth, assume the best. Don't judge. You know, don't judge them by the color of their team football team colors or college colors. People can see that. Don't try to guess their net worth or credit score. You know, Some people come to a plant sale, they're going to dress down on purpose. So just because a person might not look like they're ready to take away 10 Japanese maples, you can't assume that. That's a bad assumption. Bad assumption to make. Gossip. Ooh, I think we're all very, very tempted to gossip, whether it's about football or politics or whatever. Boy, it's best if we just stick to plants, because you just don't know. And you may be talking to someone who's totally simpatico with you, but there's a person 3 feet away who's going, what? You gotta be kidding me. So really be on your best behavior. And one of the things Mike said about getting out and coming around, put the plant in their hands. Let them touch it. Let them smell it. Let them hold it. You know, that's a tactile experience. And if you can get it in their hands, they're very seldom going to like, ugh. They're going to throw it back at you, right?
Or put it in their basket. And it's in their basket while you're talking about it.
Right.
As for SPCA, that's one of the best ways to get rid of a puppy. Put it in somebody's hand. It works.
There's a thing that we learned to break this thing down into a more scientific methodology, which is called the communications process. Every time you interact with somebody, believe it or not, the quality of that interaction is depending on going through 4 steps in the communication process. The ice breaking, which is that, hi, do you have any questions I'd be happy to ask? Oh, that's a beautiful plan. That's breaking the ice, breaking down the barrier. Physically, get next to them, come out from around the table, and psychologically, breaking down the barriers, because everyone has barriers. Everyone has barriers. If you come home from work, or you come home from school, and your spouse is there, what's the first thing you're going to do? You go through like a little ice breaking. Hi, honey, how was your day? It might be trite, it might be cliche, but hey, I'm home. But we all do that, consciously or not. We're all doing that because you may not think you have communication barriers with your spouse, but there's a multi-million-dollar industry that says that you do, and half of the show's on television. So the next part of the communications process is this needs determination. And that's the Q&A that you go through with virtually every customer who comes along, because you don't know if they have sun, shade, wet, dry, they hate purple foliage, they love white flowers, they're looking for plants with fragrance. So that needs determination. You're trying to figure out what is it they need, what is it they want. The next part of the communications process is you matching those needs. So you have that ice breaking, you have the needs determination, and then you're matching those needs. You mentioned sell the sizzle, not the steak. It's very easy to talk about the plant, 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 the plant. People don't care about the plant. What's the most important thing to everyone?
What it does for
Me. The most important thing to me is me. The most important thing to you is you. This plant has beautiful white flowers. When you cut these, they're going to smell great in your living room. When you make it go back to them, how does it impact them? So you're selling the benefits, not the features. It's very easy. We need to know all the features, but somehow we've got to turn it around and make it about them. Because it's all about them. That's what everyone wants to hear. They want to hear the word you, yours, your garden, your family, your lifestyle, your gardening lifestyle, the wildlife that will come to your garden when you plant this. All your friends who won't have a clue what this is, when they come to your garden, you'll be able to stump all your plant nerd, chumpy friends. Really, that's what makes the connection. It's not about the plant. It is, but try to turn it around based on them. Use the words you and you're very good at that. You don't think so?
I don't know. I'm the drunk in the bar. I just will talk to anybody.
last part of the communications process is the closing. Close the sale. You've heard that phrase before. Bring it home. All right? You use closed questions and encouraging phrases, ideally, if the answer is yes. You want them to say yes, 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 yes. Well, you're going to take 6, right? Yes. So that's, ask them the right questions. Do you want 3? Do you want 5?
Just the assumed close.
Mm-hmm. Assume it. Can I put this in your cart?
It's not too long.
Is this the one you want? Wouldn't this look great in your garden? You know, there's a couple. I think you'll really love this.
When this blooms, it is going to remind you of the way your grandmother smelled before church.
Oh.
That hits them every time, because if they leave that plant, they have left poor grandma. You know? It's true though, that plant does smell like grandma before church.
What plant is that?
And it brings those memories pouring back. And they say, that's why I love the plant sale. We've got and trees and shrubs will really get into your pocket. So we try to tell folks a little extra information about how to take care of it, how to plant it, what it means to dig a hole. All right? And so it's springtime, remember, and so the care is really important that these plants get established before summer. So spend a little bit of extra time. You know, if you're selling pansies, you might, no, we're not selling pansies, but, you know, you might want to talk about deadheading. All right, so you might want to talk about deadheading and let them get a good root start first and that sort of thing. Just take
And make that story personal.
Yeah.
In my garden, I like to pinch these back around the first of April because it gives them a nice flush, whatever. Make it a personal story. The last part of this is, I think, one of the things that we all get is these objections. Oh, you know. And there are a number of ways you can sort of classify that, but one of the first ones is they're looking for something else. We don't really have. Somebody comes in and they know exactly what they want.
I want a corkscrew willow. Oh, you know, we don't have those. Those are so easy. We just didn't feel like we needed to offer those. But if you want, you have a friend that has one of those? Oh, this is easy. Just get her to give you a clipping of that and stick it in a bucket of mud, and you've got you a corkscrew willow. But you're going to want to spend $20 for that, so let me show you some other $20 plants that are going to be even better, you know? And so just use it as an opportunity.
Yeah, we usually have a good alternative, possibly even a better alternative. You know, those corkscrew willows, they really grow fast, but in 15 years, they're going to start to self-destruct. And of course, the root system is very hard if you have a small garden. That's a big tree for a small garden. So you may want something like, oh, I never knew it got that big.
You know, you really need is a friend with one. You don't really need it.
Exactly. You can vicariously enjoy many things. And this is where those open-ended questions are helpful. Open-ended meaning they don't have a yes or no. So what, you want a corkscrew willow? As I said, we don't have those, but what is it about the corkscrew willow that you really dig?
Flower arranging.
Flower arranging. Let me show you a couple other things that we have that I know some flower arrangers they go bonkers for. So they're right over here.
See, just take it and run with it.
So find out what they really want. They don't really want a corkscrew willow. They want something that has funky branches that they can use in a flower arrangement. And we may have 50 of those kinds of things. They may like the fact that, I don't know, it has curly leaves. You can spray herbicide on it and do the same effect. You know, it goes back to the communications process where you're determining the need and you're matching that need.
No, he's just pointing out that we need to take our medication.
The other big objection is, of course, they're asking you something you don't know the answer to. And believe it or not, people point to me and they, well, Fred knows everything. I don't. Truly, I don't. If somebody's asking me details about camellias, whoa. I'm marching them over to the camellia booth and I'm introducing them to somebody at the camellia booth. If someone's asking me how to cultivate herbs, you know, I've grown a few, I can tell you what I know, but I'm going to take them over to the herb booth. Orchids, you know, I'm in the woods, lost, hopeless without a map or any kind of compass. So make sure that you acknowledge that. You know, I don't know. We're going to take you to find the expert.
Fred's trying to stay on track because he's got to leave, but I know that many of you have questions about things that have come up. Or maybe you don't. But
I can push them down the room. I don't have to leave for another point.
oh, good. Good. I don't want to stand up here by myself anyway.
No. You know, we often bring books to the sale. We often bring other kinds of resources. You know, there's almost nobody in the room who doesn't own one of these. And you'll probably be able to get the internet. So pictures, other resources. If you don't know the answer, if you're trying to find, there's no harm in saying, you know what, let's look that up, because I'm not exactly sure what kind of flowers it has. And you may have a couple of shortcuts to certain websites that offer you things that are particular to your plant group. I'm not asking you to download every photograph of every named camellia, you know, because we have experts for that. But there's no harm in looking at references. I think that shows people a willingness to provide good customer service. You know, I've often wondered about that. Let's look it up and we'll both learn.
You know, I don't grow this particular variety, but I've got Durr's book. Let's look it up. You know, so there you go. Where are we?
We don't get too much of this, but often we give people who have a little bit of sticker shock. And you may have some things in your booth that are a little more expensive. For us, it always comes back to like some funky thing that I picked out, or it's a rare Japanese maple. And there are reasons why those things are a little more expensive, and you can state those reasons. But Japanese maples are sometimes hard to graft, they're slow to grow, so a bigger one represents time, and there's more effort and essentially rent that a grower has to pay to hold that plant for so many years. But I often try to bring that back to the gardens programs and the fact that, you know, we're not a big box store. We're a charity. I mean, we really are. Now, you're not making a charitable purchase, because that's what you're supporting the work that this botanical garden does, and you're supporting a free resource for 350,000 people, visitors a year. Aside from Sunday, the last 2 hours of the sale, we're not a bargain basement. You know, there's nothing that we promote that says discounted plants, the cheapest plants around. So I don't think most people come to the sale with an expectation of bargain basement prices, except on Sunday afternoons, and that's never a guarantee. You're going to get what's left. Please come back Sunday afternoon. We may be discounting some things, but if it's a really good thing and you really want it, it may not be here.
But having said that, there's always, in trees and shrubs anyway, there's always some guy that says,
It's never a woman.
not that son. No, that's usually the same guy. and he wants to spend, obviously, a great deal of money, but he wants some consideration. Okay? And y'all may run into that too. You know, if I buy 3 flats, are you going to discount these? Or
Yeah.
I look them right in the eye and say, are you a member of the gardens? And they're never a member of the gardens.
Right.
And then I often say, well, if you'll just go up there, or I'll take you up there and let you sign up. I'll give you a little discount. And I will. I'll take a little bit off, but not a lot off, and not off of everything he's got. But I'm trying to make them become more participatory, less a buyer and more supporter. Okay? So remember, it's about support. Try to encourage them to support the garden and try to remind them that's what they're doing. That's why they're spending this money. They can probably go cheaper at the big box store. And I'll remind them, if you want to go and buy that Japanese maple that's raised in Oregon and shipped down here on a truck, then you go right ahead. You'll get a better bargain, but our trees are locally grown. And we know what performs in this area of Alabama. And I highly recommend that you get locally produced culture shock. You know? And maybe they do, and maybe they don't, but they did for me. You know, I killed them.
You know, people are objecting for price. One other way you can do it is to compare a plant with something that has no longevity. You know, certainly for the things that we're selling, the prices are a little bit steeper than trees and shrubs. But, you know, and it doesn't work for everyone, but a dinner out for two is gone in and out. You know, this plant is going to provide you with, you know, decades of beauty, interest, and shade. You're going to appreciate this every year. An article of clothing, that may work with people who that works with. It could be a movie ticket, something like that. You know, and movies you can get on Netflix for real cheap now, but, you know, compare it to something that has little value or little longevity. You had a comment last
One
time.
of the things that I say to people when they say that the prices are a little bit high, as I said, they may be a little bit higher than what you might find at a box store, but you're not going to find any box store or any nursery that's going to have this vast variety of plants. This is the largest variety of plants that you're ever going to see. And on top of that, you're also getting better expert advice than you're going to get from a Walmart or from other places.
Yeah.
And we selected these plants for this sale in this region.
It's all those intangibles that we covered right at the beginning that have to do with you all being the experts, the plants that we've already sort of self-selected, and the growers that
So how do we deal with negative things like, I bought this by Birmingham from you last year, and it's dead.
Let's figure out what we're doing.
You know?
What'd you do to it? Yeah.
So Courtney's gonna be a cashier.
But I think you can say that.
Well, I bought 3 and they all died too. I mean, it's that story of, yes, I bought 3, I bought 5, and I had a horrible year. The rain last year was uncontrolled. You know, like,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, we did.
We had
Root
horrible
crop was
summer
terrible
last
last year.
summer.
This winter was terrible. People are like you. We're all replacing lots of plants. You know. Yeah. Having a plant die is not unusual. Commiserate and then move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know the old. Well, then you just need to kill it 2 more times. So you can actually say what you said. If you say it kind of like, well, what'd you do to it? You know, and kind of like, you know, you're poking fun.
Right,
Doesn't work with everybody. Mike gets away with it. Some people may have had a prior bad experience with a plant. So you're showing them something, they go, you know what, I've killed that 3 times. Really? Because I've grown it, I know people have grown it, and it seems to be a really good grower. So it may be a question of, you know, again, you have to kill the plant 3 times before you give up on it.
Or we may have sold them the wrong plant or the wrong place. It may be we didn't ask enough questions.
Right.
You know.
Soil test. Tell them to do a soil test. Yes.
Well, be careful with the soil tests. They tell you a lot of information that isn't necessarily germane to growing horticulture. You know, all the soil testing, most people don't realize this, it's geared to agriculture. You know, so if you're going to plant 12 acres of soybeans, the soil test is a really good thing to get. There isn't a soil in Alabama that won't grow most of the plants that we sell at the plant sale. pH is a big thing. So if they've got limestone outcroppings, you know, we're not trying to sell them acid-loving plants. If they've got a swampy soil, we're not trying to sell them plants that have really, really sharp drainage. And a soil test sort of drives them away to get a soil test at some point in the future, and you haven't sold them anything. So maybe there's some Q&A we can do to get to that. We talked about an alternative location. We've talked about, you know, that was an old variety. This is a different variety. You had a different kind of, might look similar to you, but it's not the same thing. It's a hardier version. It's a version that is better for central Alabama. You know, tomatoes. Or rosemary. There are vast differences from one tomato to another tomato, from one rosemary to another rosemary.
Think of lavender.
So The other thing is a totally different plant that has the same features that they like. What was it about that lavender that you liked? Well, it had sort of silvery foliage. Well, that's a tough call in central Alabama, but let me give you some alternatives. What was it? Well, I like to make potpourri. Oh, well, maybe there's a number of other things we can talk about. You know, we think of a plant, someone says, you know, I love lavender. That plant is great. I love that plant. We're automatically thinking, what about lavender do I like? We don't know what it is about that plant that really turns them on. So that's the challenge, to find out what exactly it is that turns them on about that plant. And then we can steer them to something different if in fact all the other things are really not wonderful.
Which brings us right back to where we started from. Know what's in there. Get there early enough to where you can survey the building, know what's in there, so that you can take them where they need to go, or so that you can make a recommendation of a plant that you have in stock. Okay? We probably do have an alternative to most everything.
To most everything.
Yeah.
It might not be the best, but it might be a good alternative, in many cases a better alternative. And one of the things they may be lacking success with is they're not as good a gardener as you. So your personal story about how to have success with that plant can turn them right around.
Yeah,
or someone else's.
I killed
personal
them,
story.
and I killed them, and I killed them until I learned to put gravel in the soil and raise that bed up and make sure you've got good air circulation. And then I got pretty good at that.
Yeah, I've killed that numerous times. Then I decided I'd put it in a container.
Yeah.
And that worked great. You know, some people don't want to buy, or they have an objection because they don't think they really have a place for them. I don't know where I'm going to put that. My garden has still 30 plants that I haven't found a place for yet. And I know that, in fact, I have a place for those plants, I just haven't decided yet. That's something that gardeners understand, and most of us in this room have a little place in their garden that is the nursery, or the holding pen, or whatever it is that you want, or the land of slowly dying plants. You know, we all have that. And one of the things I always say, and I tell the master gardeners every time I speak to them, every master gardeners class, until such time as scientists determine that killing a plant actually causes pain and suffering to the plant on a level that we can understand, it's okay. It's okay to kill a plant. It's not illegal. Okay? As far as I can tell, it's not immoral. You know, and you may be out a couple of bucks, but at the end of the day, you know, you may not know. You may have to take the plant home and put it there and look at it.
I learned that from Wheezy. Wheezy, you catch Wheezy in her garden like this for the longest periods of time, but she takes these little pots of plants and she puts them in her garden and then she stares, and I know what she's doing. She's saying spring, summer, fall, winter, and then she'll move it. And it may take her months to get a plant in her garden, but she doesn't move it once she gets it there. But she's run through all those things. So somebody, where's David? Somebody wants to spend $120 on it. I really love this Japanese maple. I can't live without it, but I just don't know if I have the right place for it. We tell them, David and I, leave it in the pot and put it there and see how it handles the exposure. And if it gets all scalded, if it's got too much afternoon sun, you know you've got it in the wrong spot. Okay? So you may want to move that pot and see if you can make it happier in a different place that appeals to you that way. But just work with them. Sometimes people want a plant and they don't know what they're going to do with it, where they're going to put it, but they just can't leave it. That's okay. Just tell them how to be successful with it. That's a tip that we can use.
And again, bringing it back to a personal story. You know, I did this. It's reasonably successful. You can do that. It's okay. You'll be able to do it. One other potential motivator to stimulate someone who's not sure is that, you know, we're out of here Sunday afternoon. The sale's really finite. I don't know if you're going to be able to find that someplace else. You know, this is, again, going back to the uniqueness of the plant sale, the uniqueness of the expertise in the room, the opportunity to support the gardens. We're finding the availability of everything we have is limited. Fall plant sale, I have no idea what we're going to have in the fall. We may or may not have this. You should get it now because it kind of is going away. You talked about the container plant. You know, some people really don't know. They think they have to buy that plant and go home and plant it tonight. You know, we can certainly allay those fears. And plants, woody plants less so, but most herbaceous stuff, maybe it just needs, after a couple of months, to be potted up in something bigger so they can get it to live a little bit longer. But a lot of plants can be held easily through the summer and planted in the fall. In my garden, a lot of plants better make it through the winter and the following spring, so I figure out where exactly they want to go. There's no harm in that. And a lot of people just want your permission to be able to do that. You know, so you can be an enabler, a facilitator, and a liberator to allow people to do those things. One other problem that we suffer from, I think, at the plant sale is we have so many options. You know, it's like that cereal aisle. And you enter the cereal aisle and you're just like, whoa, that's a lot of cereal. Yeah. Or a menu that's like 80 pages long, and you're trying to figure out what it is that you want. And some customers are really overwhelmed with that. So if they like white flowers, they don't want to know 68 plants that have white flowers. That's a little too much information. So those kind of people, you really, really want to just give them 2 or 3 different options. Then make them make a decision. You know, is it this one? Is it that one? How many of these can I put in your cart? And go back to that closing and try to get them to make a decision on that. We run into Japanese maples. We may have 35 different Japanese maples, and boy, it's overwhelming. Somebody only wants one. How do we narrow that down? How much space do they have? Is it something, are the red leaves really a thing? The red leaves in the spring, or are you looking for something that has yellow fall color? You know, which one really turns you on, steer you to that one? Is it an edible plant? Is that what turns you on about that thing? Is it a yellow flower? Is it that one? Is it a butterfly plant? Is that what's really, you know, turning you on? And then, if you can get them to break that ice and let you put 6 of those in the cart, then say, well, you know what would go along right with that? Because when this finishes blooming, that one's going to come in, and the butterflies have food after that one goes. So it's about trying to find a way around that wall, right? What other questions do you have, or what other little trials and tribulations have you gone through, and you may be looking for a particular fun thing to say?
I had a question. Have all the plants been hardened off?
Have all the plants been hardened off in terms of?
Well, if you buy a flat of tomatoes and stick them out there, are they going to get scalded and wilt, or do they need to be eased off to get acclimated?
The last published frost-free date in the state of Alabama is April 15th. So, fresh young tomatoes, if you plant them out and then we have a frost, they're in a matter of hardening off. It's that they
Hardened off. Yeah, they're hardened off.
So you don't know, basically you don't know if they've been hardened off or
frosted
not?
away. I don't think in the spring you're talking about things, I think that's the wrong, do people ask that question?
I asked that
Is it
question.
hardened off?
Well, maybe I'm using the wrong term. I know that if I take my tomatoes out of my greenhouse and put them straight out in the yard, that sometimes they get scalded. So
that is true. But what we might do is say, that's a question for the tomato lady. And she would tell you, wait until the soil warms up to a certain point, and then she'll tell you to plant them deep and all.
Okay.
But I don't know if I would personally, in trees and shrubs, if I would get into that. I'd probably send you, if you asked me that question, I'd send you or take you to the tomato lady.
And I think it's the phrase hardened off that was kind of throwing me.
I'm sorry.
Because that's something I think about in the fall, maybe acclimate.
Okay, I'm sorry. But what I kind of meant was a general question, so that, like, basically, these plants are all coming from different places, you know, plant groups or growers or whatever,
yeah.
and they've all treated them differently. So when you take them home, you kind of need to keep your eye on them and, you know, check out the root system.
It may differ.
Okay.
You know, the tomato might be different than the hydrangea, might be different than the tropical hibiscus.
That was really the question.
Okay.
No.
They may be different.
Some of our growers have pushed things in their greenhouse to get them ready for the spring plant sale. And they have not been exposed to anything except the greenhouse environment.
Right.
So
Right.
you know where your plants came from.
Right.
In terms of
And that's certainly germane if we have a frost for some of those things that are pushed.
But I think that you brought out, excuse me, Fred, you brought out a point that we've been trying to make. You know your plants, and you're going to share this knowledge with the people who buy them so that they're successful. You know? So you say, I want you to take these ferns home, and I want you to do this with them.
These are ready to go in the ground. You can plant them today if you want. Not a problem.
Here's the other thing, because I'm guilty of this, and I think most of us, because we're gardeners and master gardeners are. If you say to somebody, well, do you have full sun in your yard? They may not understand what the definition of full sun is.
absolutely.
They may not understand, I mean, I can't tell you how many people come by the perennial booth and go, does it come back every year? And, you know, we
Yeah.
begin to say, don't kill it, you know,
like hopefully.
but there's a way to work those kind of questions rather than just saying it needs full, to work that kind of thing into your conversation.
How would you do that?
Without being necessarily seeming to be a know-it-all. Well, I just say, rather than saying, well, this needs, you know, this needs full sun, how many hours of sun do you think you get in your garden every day? That kind of thing. We also, in the perennial group, I know we separate our plants into sun and shade plants. I don't know if other
Good way to
groups
do
do
that.
that or not, but we do that, so.
Honestly, a lot of people don't know if it's sun or shade.
Right.
One easy thing that I do, and I don't know if but it works for me, I say, well, does your grass thrive there? If the grass is thin and weak, it's probably too shady for grass, which means it's shade. You know, but a lot of people don't know.
You know, and that changes seasonally, and it changes based on the, when I come home from work every day, it's in full sun. What about when you get up in the morning?
Well, see, I always try and ask, is it morning sun or afternoon sun? Because 6 hours of morning sun at my house is very different than 6
And I was
hours.
gonna ask
Sure
if somebody could find that there's a little cheat sheet about that, like in the South, because it's morning sun versus afternoon sun, and, you know, full sun for us, you don't really wanna put it out there 12 hours of 90-degree heat in the full, I mean,
Has anybody seen that?
well, it's a little, David Doggett sometimes talks about it, you know, about.
I have a presentation that I do to garden clubs where I talk about plant right place, and that's part of it.
The morning sun.
The morning sun and the evening sun and that kind of thing, but I think it's just a matter, I mean, what I'm hearing is that, you know, in addition to knowing what our plant group has, it probably would behoove each of us to do a little research before we come in there and know those things. And when we were talking about weather and things like that, take a look at the long-range forecast before the plant sale, and you can tell people, well, it looks like we might have a frost, so-and-so and so-and-so, you know, I mean, I think it's just up to us to do a little bit more research if we are the experts. Then, you know, then we just need to do that. And I'm guilty of it, and this has been good for me because I obviously need to do something more than just show up and sell plants.
And I'm probably guilty of it too, saying things like full sun, half shade, and not drilling down into really what their specific thing is. But that morning sun and afternoon sun or morning shade, that is probably the biggest deciding, you know, line for us down here, because that afternoon sun in the summer can be a killer.
We also have different definitions of full and partial between the plant groups.
Right, I'd like to have a consistent one if we could.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, in my case, I'm stretching because I'm so shady, so I'm kind of hoping I got enough sun, you know, so that's where I'm going into the, gee, you know, maybe I do.
What other questions or comments, Susan?
One thing we hadn't addressed, and we get asked every year, is deer resistance. I've been at this year, but I think it's probably doesn't pertain to all plant groups.
Susan's question is about deer resistant, and I think
it
we all
would
should
be
be
useful
prepared
to be
to handle
aware
those.
if somebody's gonna say is it deer resistant, you know, if you're able to at least, you can look it up maybe, but.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But your actual deer appetite may vary.
Yeah.
And resistance, one thing, something that they absolutely will not eat is.
Yeah, resistance, I come from the land of deer, high deer density. And resistance is a continuum. Your actual deer may vary, your actual deer may really be hungry. In which case, you know, grits are not my favorite food, but if I was starving, I would eat them. And so that's one of the things we have to be cognizant of when we tell people something's resistant. It might be the last thing that they eat. Benny, over to you, Ken.
All right, I have a deer sensor, and it puts out a high-pitched sound. And you know how the dogs, you know, when a siren comes on,
Sure.
this puts out that sound, and the deer are gone. I will have sheets showing what you get and everything at my booth.
How many years you had that?
I've had that about 5 years. I would not have any daylilies if I didn't have that.
And I've read that after a while, those things, the deer figure out that, oh,
No,
I'm not gonna get hurt.
It hurts I can walk. Yeah, it hurts their ears. I can walk through my garden. I can hear that deer beller down in the woods.
Ken, what were you gonna say?
There are ACES publications that list deer resistant plants. We have made some copies of those, and we have done tree shrubs. Yeah, they come up around the
I am going to depart. But I think we made it all the way through the handout. I know we didn't cover everything. Mike's going to stay a few more minutes, if you're nice to him. But does anybody have any questions for me before I go?
Do you want us to wear our new 50 t-shirts?
Yeah. I want you to have 50th anniversary tattoos on your forehead. And we actually have those. They wash off. We have temporary tattoos at your option. But no, we definitely want to talk about the anniversary. You know, this is our logo and this is our tagline. So everything that you're seeing this year is going to have that on it. But you know, I don't expect you to go home diligently and wash and every night. But the more you can wear the 50th swag, the better. We have pins that you can wear. Yeah, look at your pins.
Have a good dinner.
Was that helpful?
Yes.
Yeah, we allay some of your fears. If you need any trees and shrubs, this is your guy.
All right, questions?
Thank you.
Want to go? Questions? Any more? Comments? Comments? David.
Question. We line up our plants by the generic name.
A, B, C, D.
Yeah, most of the people, including me, don't know all of it.
That's right.
So is there any way to get around that? I'm sure y'all have thought about it, but
Alicia, we don't see any way to get rid of Jeannie in the next few years, do we? So we know we're not going to change. It's Jeannie's way.
You know, I can send you a plant list in advance, and you'll kind of,
yeah, that would help a lot, I think.
So we do group certain things like shade trees are together, azaleas are together. But remember, she's going to come in and she's going to want a snowball bush. Well, she's got in her mind what a snowball bush is, so we gotta be real patient because you'll show her what you think is the snowball bush she wants, and she'll say that's not it. So then you think, well, what is a big white flower?
Is it a viburnum or is it a hydrangea?
yeah.
No, she doesn't know. She wants it. Grandma had it. That's the way it looked, and that's not it. You know. But the reason we're alphabetized is just to make it easier to find that stuff, so that as we compress, it's still easier to find the stuff. But you have to know the scientific name. So come early, you'll see me there. I'm blind, I have to get right down and look at everything. And it's a lot of studying.
I tell you, helping with the setup the day before.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it teaches you where everything is.
It does.
It's easier than that.
Just say it. What?
Oh, no, I was going to kind of reiterate what she
Jump
says.
in.
But
Can you come up here?
I sure can. I get to be Fred.
You get to be Fred.
All right. This is really kind of geared at for a lot of you Master Gardener interns that are really looking to kind of get yourself immersed, and I really appreciate you coming. One of the things that we really like to see is, and it's a great way to kind of get yourself to own that knowledge of the plants, is to come in even before we start moving plants, but we've got a lot of propagation groups that work on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I know you guys are, Thursday is out, but Wednesday, Mike is on Tuesday with his crew. We've got a lot of different ways that you can kind of get yourself acquainted with a lot of these plants that we are selling at the plant sale. And then, secondly, the best way to really get yourself of understanding of like all the questions, right place, right plant for the right time, what we have to sell, kind of companion plants, is to come on the 2 days prior to the sale, help with the placement, kind of get a chance to kind of meet folks, get to know the plants, kind of go around, really kind of look at the setup. And you know, that's for you know, the interns, you're going to get hours for that anyway, because you're contributing your time and your expertise. But this is a way to really kind of get you oriented to the sale. And Gail and Susan and Mike and Ken and Alicia, well maybe not Ken, and David, they're going to go out of their way, and Sarah to help you. They're going to, you know, they're going to really kind of pull you in.
Who are our interns? Raise your hand if you're in. Oh.
And let me point out, because I'm working to assist with y'all's class, if you want to find out who to go to where or what, just contact me and I'll get you one in the
It
right
is
person.
overwhelming. It is so big. You've got to give yourself time to get your sea legs. It's really big. I get overwhelmed when I walk in and there's this sea of plants, and we're going to sell those.
Karen?
Well, one thing we want to talk about with the vegetable group, we sell almost 10,000 individual plants out of that thing, 49 varieties of tomatoes, but alone, and we're going to have a lot of hot peppers. But this year, I'm going to have an education session.
Okay.
And where we talk about this, and I'm thinking, Taylor, maybe Saturday the 22nd of March. Okay. I was thinking of a Saturday, sure. And you know, maybe from 9:30 to 11:30 or 12. But anyway, I think it would help everybody, and because we do a lot of that informally. But so we're trying to up our game a little bit. Also, there's a lot of tie-in with cooking. It's so easy with our vegetables and all, and with our herb friends. So we're upping our game a little bit this year. So if you're interested in the vegetables, let me know, because I've got a list from last year, but I'm just adding to it.
So you are kind of pushed for time. I want to get you out of 11, but is there any more questions for Mike? If some of you can stay, some of our propagation folks, and can kind of talk with some of their interns, that would be great. If not, then we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get to it.
For those of us who don't have smartphones, and you had mentioned something about books and so forth, if we have a couple of books that we think might, like for example, have a picture of a snowball bush, can we say, let me show you what I have in my book. Is this what you're looking for? Because in the book, it's also going to list the scientific name.
Yeah. Just be aware that books get lost, and sometimes they walk off. Put your name in them. They don't bring something that's out of print in a precious edition.
You might want to even print it off the internet ahead of time, the picture itself, or take the book and make a Xerox copy. You can get a good color copy, and just take the copy and keep it in a notebook.
But Jane, I would say if you're in a group, somebody will have a book probably. Somebody probably.
One year Elizabeth had a little table with books, and it seems like she's always at the sale, and maybe she could have like a separate area back in the refreshment area or something.
Yeah, and I'm kind of working with trying to get Bethany. We're going to have a Master Garden table, and so a lot of that information I'm hoping to kind of cull in one area. for an 8 extension table so we can have.
Because for a lot of people, those phones are.
Because the plant sale is, yeah, it's about us conveying our mission, our message, plants, but also if we can convey information about all the things we're talking about so people walk away, they're going to come back the following year because they know they're getting that value added. Mike, you want to add anything else before we? You want to dance?
Yeah. Shall we need less before we leave?
I do want to say thank you so much for giving us your time today. This is really, you know, the plant sale is about the mission, but without our volunteers, we don't have the ability to do this. It's really about, you know, you guys helping us convey that and support the mission. So thank you.
It's going to be great.
When do we get to go shopping?
Oh, great question. Thursday.
Just run through the whole schedule.
All right. Quick and dirty. The 8th and 9th is all hands on deck to move plants, get plants in their proper location, get everything set up. And then is it the afternoon of the 9th?
Yeah, Thursday.
No, 10th.
10, 12 to 2.
12 to 2. It's our volunteer appreciation sale, so you guys get to go through, get first dibs on all the different plants and go through it. And each of you will get, again, your coupon for your $5 off. So I'll give, and by the way, for all you plant shares, you'll get those on the 17th.
And
so, plus I've got something else for you.
Tip about the volunteer sale: if you're a real plant geek, you'll want to get there and do a preview for the
Yes,
sale.
and that's why,
because there's so many plants that you may really miss something.
You can't do it in 2 hours.
You just can't do it. You kind of have to. You have to push. To get through.
So give us a little bit of your time, a little bit of your sweat and your muscle, kind of on the front end, and then you can, you know, reap the benefits on the back.
Cards? Oh,
Yes, everything should be loaded up, ready to go. So, using coffee boxes, Red Diamond.
It's basically like the box that paper comes in.
Yeah.
People tote them around like this.
Yeah. And we have to, and Lynn, because she's our box lady, she does. How many boxes can you put together in an hour? Like 10,000? All right, well, yes. Oh, yeah, good customer service aspect. People who don't have carts and are carrying boxes, you know, these are not taped, they're just kind of folded in, hold them from the bottom. So we don't
if you see somebody holding it like this, tell them to get under it. Or if it's full, put your name on it.
Speaking of full, this is a way to upsell. If they have a full cart, we strongly encourage, look, we'll have a staging area or a holding area. Hey, you know what, we'll hold this for you, and you can go back and get some other things. So again, they forget how much they got. Going back and getting more. A little upsell strategy. All right, well, thank you so much. If you are willing to kind of